How'd you
I lost 1.5 buy-ins.
go? Okay, how do you feel you went?
I felt like I played pretty well. There were some hands that I was unsure of, so I checked them in GTO Wizard during the break, and they were well played. So I think I generally played pretty well today. There was one like really weird hand where I three bet the river and he four bet, and it was a spot where he just like all his value I would expect to take a different line earlier in the game tree because it was like the check down line.
Was your
He
three bet
might
river all? Was your river three bet all in?
no.
Why was it not all in?
Uh, you can look at it. It's the queen nine hand. It's queen nine offsuit. I checked it in GTO Wizard. So essentially the line was single raise pot. Um, Jack 10 two tone. Nine on the turn checks through a second time. Nine on the river, giving me trips with queen nine. I go for a block bet, which I go like one third pot. The solver doesn't really like it. The solver wants me to bet bigger with my hand or check. It does use block bets in the spot, but not with my hand. That's when Brandon raises, kind of small, raises to like 6 big blinds. So it's like a 5 big blind pot on the river. I bet like 1.5 big blinds or so. Brandon raises to like 5 or 6 big blinds. I three bet him to like 21 big blinds, and he goes all in for like 140 big blinds. I was like, what the fuck? I because sets should almost always bet on earlier streets, and straights should probably not four bet the river. So I was trying to think of like what hand could he even have. GTO Wizard has 10-9 in that spot as like the only value hand that exists in the in position four betters range. And I tanked for a while, but at the end of the day, it was like a 5x pot shove or something retarded. So I'm like, I just never have to call this without a boat. I can just call a boat and be fine, probably. So I folded.
Yeah. So where was your mistake?
I don't think it was a well, I didn't lose any EV in the hand. I checked it in GTO Wizard. The only thing that could be considered a mistake in the hand was the um the block bet on the river. GTO Wizard never block bets with my specific hand, but it doesn't actually lose any EV to block bet. It was just a really weird hand, and it felt like he never had value, but it also felt like he never had bluffs. And so I was very confused. I'm like, all his value takes a different line than this, and no one ever four bet bluffs the river. So I was a bit conflicted, but it was a very big jam. So I decided to fold. Yeah, we were 140 big blinds deep. Yeah. So there was that hand. There was one where I tripled off with queen high. Solver
Okay.
liked
Is
it.
is does three betting to does three betting to 21 make any sense?
Yeah, the solver thought, or GTO Wizard thought that if you do block bet it and you do get raised small, it does like the 20 big blind size for the three bet because I beat like pretty much all of the lower trips. And he could even be raising a jack there reasonably or an overpair against the block bet. And then I just beat like all the trips with a lower kicker.
Okay.
And
Does it not necessarily with this hand, does it make sense for the rest of your range?
uh yes. I think that's the size I would generally want to go with a lot of different hands.
So you want to share your screen and show me what you're saying?
Yeah. So we'll bring up the hand here. It's right here. That's the queen eight hand. The queen eight hand is weird. Oh, the queen eight hand was weird as well. We'll go over that next, if you prefer. But the queen nine hand, I think it was this one. So this one. No, that was the ace five hand. This was another one. So he opens.
Yeah, so I saw. Yeah, I got the hand here. Just in GTO Wizard.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Ran a lot of hands in GTO Wizard. Open. We should use simplified because he's using the simplified strategy. We call. Let's jack 10-2. Check. Check. 9 on the turn. My hand pure checks the turn. I remember that. Checks back. 9 on the river. So my hand does not use the block size. It's not an EV mistake, or at least it's not very big. Where's my hand? Queen of clubs. Not yet. This is my hand. So it's like it loses 2/100ths of a big blind to use the block size. So not super significant. After you do block bet, he has some small raises, which he goes extremely small here with the raise. And my hand pure 3-bets if it does take this line. It doesn't really take the line in game, but it prefers the 20 or so big blind raise, 20 or so big blind re-raise. This is also, this is 140 big blinds deep. So given that it went all in, we should probably change this to 150. And we'll go back through the turn real quick. Well, on the turn, in the big blind shoes, my hand still pure checks. On the river, block betting is fine with some queen 9, but not my queen 9. Okay, whatever. He goes for the small raise. I go for the 3-bet. Now all of a sudden it actually prefers the smaller 3-bet. It's actually like half a big blind mistake, it looks like, to go the size I went. In game, I think it's less than this much of a mistake, just due to the fact that I think he's a bit more capped than the solver is in this spot. Or I thought he was a bit more capped. It's possible he does have the appropriate amount of boats and I guess some straights, not many straights, but there is some straights in small blinds range, I think. Yeah, he's got some like 7-8 and some queen 8 in his range. So it's a small mistake at 150 big blinds, which makes sense because you have you're going to be made indifferent in a bigger pot if he does choose to re-raise, and your hand is a bit less. It's like as valuable, but its value, it loses all its EV more frequently, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but I do understand the concept of like the value thresholds get a bit Like you can't raise as big when you're very deep. Generally, if you're capped. And I am somewhat capped here. I don't have the higher boats. I don't have Jackson 10s and I don't have that much 10-9. I have a little bit of 10-9, but yeah, jams. 3-bet him. 3-bet him on the river. It's doing its thing. Rips it in. We have Queen 9, and you should fold it at equilibrium. So that's what I did. Folded. So seems as though the raise size was a bit inaccurate at the stack depth that we were. Other than that, I feel okay about how I played that particular hand. And the raise size could be better if Brandon is capped, which I assumed he was. It's possible he's not, given that he 4-bet me on the river. So that hand happened. Then there was the ace-5 hand. Do you have anything to say about that hand, or can we move on?
So I would suggest that you take a good look at the river construction in that hand again in your own time. A lot of these spots where it sort of checks down and you get to the river, you should take a really good look at river construction starting from the river node. So these check down lines, I think that you've got a bit of trouble with sometimes in constructing your ranges.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll take a look at some check down lines and single raise spots. What happened here? That happened. About that. Oh, this hand. This is an interesting hand, not so much from my point of view, but from Brandon's point of view. Overbets flop, good. Overbets turn, good. And he checks back the river. It feels like this should be a pure jam. I can check it real quick. I think we should probably check it since I'm not entirely sure. What are your thoughts on this? I think my hand's a pretty standard call, even to the double barrel with the gut shot. I would be doing a lot of folding with like a6, a7, a8, ace 9. I'd probably still mostly call. So that's just one of my best aces.
Yeah, I mean with Willie Gusher on the turn, you just snap it off. You don't expect your EV to be particularly high because he's trying to make an ace indifferent.
Yeah.
No, it goes back to one of those things where like maybe is he ever bluffing under bluffing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That would just be the equity to improve would tip me one way or the other. And it's also blocking 5-2 suited, which is the nuts she could have, which she does have in his range. It's for overbet, which is good. We go for the call. It's for the that second time. It's not really overbetting the turn. Makes sense. I think I made the same mistake earlier as well, where I wasn't paying enough attention to the stacks, but since the solver doesn't use the overbet, I'm just gonna use like the normal size. My hand's pure call. Interestingly, it can raise, I guess, but did not see that in game. See what he does. Oh, it is a check. Okay.
All right, so I want you to go through that bet hand in significantly more detail. Just go through that. Similar sorts of lines and similar sorts of boards. Take that and really study that spot because you've seen yourself come to the wrong conclusion, even though and he played it correctly. So it means that he has a better understanding of the spot than you do. So you need to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Great. And then there was a hand that I kind of felt was probably a pure call at equilibrium, but it felt like he was under bluffing. So it's 5 suited. It's my hand. And we are deep here as well. We're like 130 or so, almost exactly 130. But like, it feels like a pure quality equilibrium. So the line is essentially he 3-bets me, I call. King 3, bet call. 3/4 on the turn, call. Jack on the river, jam, and my hand feels like a pure call, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did some folding, but I think it probably should mostly call at equilibrium because he should basically never bluff with the ace of diamonds. He's not going to be bluffing with a 5. But it could just be the fact, it could just be the case that like these are just unblockers and they don't, because they don't seem to have any significant removal against value. Although ace 5 does block a little bit of ace king, which is nice. But it doesn't block king 5 suited, which he could have at this stack depth. 3-betting at 130 big blinds. There's a little bit more suited stuff. That said, I do kind of want to see if it is a pure call on the river. I decided to fold it in game because I thought it was over under bluffing, and I also thought it was possible that he would value bet extremely thin with like queens or something, or like ace jack or something. I don't think that's super likely, but just like the outside chance that it does, that it might happen, made me want to lean toward a fold a little bit. Steel Wizard is being a bit buggy today. Get it to work though. He also made a call down. I'll show you that in a second. And he bets how much on the turn? 2/3, 3/4. Okay. So he gets 3/4 on the turn. Solver prefers some smaller sizes here. My hand probably pure calls. It does. He rips it on the river. This is going to be a bit off though, just given the fact that we're 130 and GTO Wizard is 100 or 150. Sorry, but yeah, ace 5 is like a pure call. It's like somewhat significant EV to fold it. I did kind of get the feeling that that might be the case, but it felt like he was going to like significantly underbluff the spot, especially given like the turn barrel. I feel as though his turn barrels are generally going to be pretty equity driven, and a lot of the equity driven hands are like flush draws, right? That that end up blocking the folding range on the river. So he may slow down too frequently with flush draws. Let's check if he's actually supposed to bluff flush draws. Yeah, he's supposed to bluff the spade draw for all in. Yeah, there's some flush draws that are blasting here. In fact, seems most lower flush draws are blasting. And then you have the is it 7-6 without the flush draw is pure blasting. So if he slows down too frequently with the flush draws, I think this would become a fold pretty quickly, even though at equilibrium it is like a pure call. So that's my analysis of that. Thoughts?
I think you need to take a really hard look at that spot to justify a 5BB mistake at equilibrium.
I understand.
So I want you to take a look at that line and similar lines,
Mhm.
and have a and understand the spot inside out. And then once you understand the spot inside out, then you can make the assessment about whether or not he's under bluffing or over bluffing. Okay,
Yes.
so go through the entire line again and go through similar lines. Go through that run out again and go through similar run outs.
Mhm.
And break down your range and break down his range. And understand that spot at a much higher level than what you're currently presenting. And then make your assessment again about whether he's under bluffing or over bluffing.
To be fair, I did remark that my hand was a pure call at equilibrium.
You do this thing where when I point out a mistake or the solver points out a mistake, you feel like there's there's some sort of teacher pointing the shit out to you, and then you like have to justify yourself. I don't give a shit. Neither does the solver. All right. I want you to improve. You want yourself to improve. Stop trying to justify mistakes or previous actions. Just accept the fact that you could have been wrong and try to improve yourself in the future. Yeah. Just holding on to whatever ego you have about the spot is just going to hold you back in the future. All right. Like you as a person and anybody as a person, really, you don't exist in one spot in time or space. You're spread across multiple things. Your mind doesn't have your mind doesn't have access to everything that you're thinking in your subconscious. Okay.
So what about my analysis of the spot was
Everything that you think of as you're a smear of that across time and space. So you don't actually have access to all of yourself at the same time. All right.
What about my analysis of the situation was incorrect?
So you need to have a enormous you need to have an enormous read in order to justify a mistake that big.
Do you understand that given the size of the pot, a 5 big blind mistake is just over 1% of the pot?
So 5 big blinds is 5 big blinds. Wherever you make that mistake, it's the same. Right? It's the relative size of the pot, blah blah blah. That doesn't really matter. Um, you made a 5 big blind mistake. It's pretty large. Okay. So like when you're saying, X mistake, Y mistake, it's only X big blinds, Y big blinds. These sorts of mistakes, they're the ones that add up significantly over time. You're never going to actually mistake. You're never going to make a mistake where you fold a king Yeah, right. Like it's very
Say
difficult to
that
actually
again.
make that. You're never going to mistake. You're never going to make the mistake here where you're folding a king, where you're folding like
Yeah,
10
obviously.
big blinds, 20 big blinds. These are the only mistakes that people at this level make, and so this is a relatively large one. The same with stuff like the Queen Nine hand, where you say offhand that it's zero point 0.1 BB mistake. Well, any mistake is a mistake. It means that you don't understand the spot deeply enough,
Okay,
right?
okay. With the
And
queen nine hand,
you're trying to justify some stuff that is unnecessary to justify. So here, the ace five. Why is it a five big blind mistake, a six big blind mistake, compared to the 7-5, which is a 0.02 or slash indifferent in the solver versus or the queen five, etc. Right?
it just has to do with blockers.
Yeah. So I want you to
And
go through.
value doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
It's
want you
just
to
the
go
blockers.
through through all of that, go through the entire process again and understand it very deeply. And then once you understand that, then you can make the assessment about whether or not he's over bluffing or under bluffing. It's
Yesterday,
the same with all these hands that you've lost and your assessment of the spot is being slightly off, right? All of these things, opportunities for you to improve. Okay. So I want you to accept the fact that neither you nor Brandon are perfect and that neither you nor Brandon are not going to make mistakes. And then find your own mistakes and fix them faster than Brandon can fix his mistakes. Okay. Because once you accept that fact and you outwork the guy, that's when you have a greater chance of winning. If you just go through these hands and be like, oh yeah, five big blind mistake, half a big blind mistake, XYZ mistake, that doesn't matter, right? Well, no, you played 500 hands today, and we've gone through five or six hands that could have had substantial errors in them. So you're already making mistakes in 1% of your hands, and we've only gone through a handful of them, right? There could be significantly more mistakes spread out through the rest of the game tree, things that are subtle that we don't pick up on today. It's going to be your job to pick them up. I'm not going to go through every single hand in exquisite detail. I want to have a look at a much a step back and have a higher level look at things because when I start going through things in exquisite detail and pointing them out to you, you get like this where you get flustered with yourself and then you go and dob on me to Marcus and Simon saying that I'm I'm bullying you, right? Which is not the
what?
case. Which is not the case,
When did I say that?
mate.
It's just an objectively false statement.
I'm
And why do you feel the need to cut me off every time I open my mouth? Like every time I try to insert a thought, you interject. Like you never let me finish a thought.
these are the things that I've been. These are things that I've been trained to do. All right, I do these things. I say these things to try to get a point across to you. I've taught a lot of people with big egos. I've taught a lot of people that want to improve. I've taught a lot of people that have played poker for 20 years and just have this really old way of looking at things. I've talked to thousands of patients. I actively analyze people's thought on a daily basis when I'm doing psychiatry.
Okay.
You need to get some things through that what you're feeling at the moment, me making you feel bad. I'm doing this intentionally now so that you don't make mistakes later. Okay. I'm not doing this out of malice. I'm not actively trying to hurt you. I'm trying to get you to improve. And part of that is cracking through this large ego that you have, which is fine. You have a large ego. Brown has a large ego. This
Fine.
heads up fight is a battle of these two egos. I need to crack through this to get to you, to get to your subconscious, to train it to beat this motherfucker, right?
Can I go through my full thought process in this hand without being cut
I
off?
think I think I think we've already talked about this hand. So if you want to go through your thought process about any particular hand, you can record yourself talking about the hand and then record yourself going over the hand in the solver and then watch that back and you'll have an understanding of how you're presenting your thought process to me. Yeah.
Okay. Can I say a full thing without getting cut off?
Cool.
Would you mind if I went through my entire thought process with relation to this hand, give my reasoning as to why I made the play that I did, and then you can comment after I'm done laying out my full thought process on where you think the exact mistake was in the thought process. That would really help me out with this.
No, so this hand's too late now because you've already looked at it. So you can I want you to do this thing right because you do this thing where you say something about the thought process that you're going through. It ends up leading to a mistake, check the mistake, and you back rationalize. And instead of realizing that the mistake that you made was a mistake and trying to improve and moving on, you really hold on to the previous mistakes, which is probably something that I don't know
Okay.
you picked up as a kid to try to get yourself out of trouble. I don't give a shit about all that, right? Just I want you to improve as a person. So it's better to just not hold on to the past mistakes and just accept that the fact that you make a mistake and try to improve than it is to deal with this crap with trying to justify yourself and back rationalize things. Um, if you want to try to make these sorts of arguments, go through the hand, record yourself, talk about yourself, or record yourself talk about the hand. All right. In one video, so do that for an hour for one video, just talking through the hands and your own thought process, and then the next hour go through those same hands in Wizard and talk about the hands, and then if you're doing things correctly, your thought process while you're going through it in Wizard should be the same as the thought process going through without Wizard. All right, and you'll find that that's not the case.
Do you remember what I said my thought process was before we looked at it in Wizard?
So this is yeah, you're saying something about him underbluffing.
Yes, I said I think my hand is a pure call at equilibrium, but I think Brandon is underbluffing the spot, which would shift my hand from a pure call to a pure fold. That was my thought process. We looked at it in Wizard. Boom, it's a pure call in Wizard. I knew that. I thought I was underbluffing. I thought he was supposed to bluff flush draws, and I thought that there was a good chance that in game he wouldn't bluff the flush draws. We looked at it. It pure bluffs like all the 10 high flush draws and worse.
Okay, so you
So
need to
where
make
is
all
the error in my thought process?
you need to make all of these statements before you start looking at things in Wizard. All right, because this is going to be very vague.
That's exactly
so
this is
so
what I
go
said before
go
we
go
opened
go
Wizard.
go through the exercise where you talk through whichever hands that you've lost to yourself, like this is an exercise for yourself because I'm not going to watch these videos. All right. And really, no one's going to watch these videos. This is just for your own improvement. Go through it where you're talking about the hand to the camera. Okay. Record yourself speaking about the hand without looking at the solver. Okay. And then record yourself speaking about the hand with the solver. And then go and watch those two videos again. If there's any discrepancies between those two, then you've identified
That I'm back rationalizing.
a spot where you're back rationalizing, right?
Mhm.
Which you shouldn't be doing because
I truly don't think that's
that particular error prevents you from improving. Okay, so I do not I do not really care about any individual hand that you've played in the past. I care about the remaining 20,000 hands that you will play in the future. And we're just using these hands to get a glimpse into what potential mistakes that you could be making in the future. Right? So this exercise will probably be important for your own understanding about how you're thinking about things. The way that you present to me oftentimes seems a bit disorganized, which might be fine, right? But often people with this sort of disorganized thought can have some sort of underlying false belief. All right.
okay.
So either
With regards
either
to this hand,
either
this
you're not
hand is
articulating, I don't give a shit about this hand, mate. All right.
okay, but you're using this hand as evidence of an underlying leak. Okay.
Yeah, because there's a five big blind, five and a 5.6 big blind mistake here. You need to have an enormous justification in order to make that mistake. Like he not only needs to be under bluffing, he needs to be under bluffing by a significant amount, a significant amount.
Okay. What if I told you that this hand is justified within the exact framework you prescribed to me the other night?
Yeah, it isn't really because the hand is not indifferent, right? It's not close in this particular spot, right? That sort of framework helps with a lot of hands that actually are significantly closer to indifferent, like the hand here with some of these Jack X, some of these Ace X.
It is indifferent by the definition you laid out through that logical framework. It is behind value and ahead of bluffs. Therefore, it is indifferent within the logical framework you set out for me. Before we get to the blocking effects of the actual hand, we look at, is he under bluffing or over bluffing? I had a strong inclination that he was probably under bluffing this spot. Therefore, I decided that despite having really good blockers and knowing that those blockers likely shifted my hand from an indifferent call to a plus EV call at equilibrium, in game, I was going to trust my gut and make the deviation to fold my hand.
Yeah. Okay. So under bluffing, over bluffing, like you need to understand what the value is in the first place. Okay, but before you can really make the assessment about whether it's under bluffing or over bluffing, like you need to understand what that ratio actually is. So with a hand like this, right, you're making a six big blind mistake. Similarly, with a hand like Ace Jack, you'd be making a six big blind mistake. Under bluffing, over bluffing is a serious thing that you need to look at because it's very difficult for him to actually be under bluffing when you hold this particular combo. Sorry, for him to be, for him to be under bluffing when you hold this particular combo, just because it's so strong, right? So when you go through this under bluffing, over bluffing thing, like you actually need to think about all the combos that he's, shoving with here. What are those actual combos, and then adjust that, make that particular ratio, and then you'll see that when you have this particular hand, he's not actually over bluffing, under bluffing, right? It's really only when you're unsure, then you look at the blockers in significantly more detail, right? Here, like you need to make the adjustment, the assessment about whether it's under bluffing, over bluffing, given your particular hand. So your particular hand has the ace, right? Is he under bluffing, over bluffing, right? Your hand completely unblocks his bluffing range and blocks his value range. So given that fact, is he under bluffing, over bluffing? It's not necessarily the spot where like he's under bluffing, over bluffing, just in general. When your hand has significantly strong blockers like this, your assessment about whether he's under bluffing, over bluffing needs to keep that in mind. It's not like you have a hand like as like 8-5.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's like
10.
So I had a
So
I had something I wanted
go through
real
these
quick.
hands and talk about them to yourself, and then compare your thought when you're talking about them to yourself to when you're looking about it with the solver,
So
and then look back
the
on
main
that.
reason I paid for you to be my coach, it was a lot less about coaching, like actual coaching and post flop stuff, and it's a lot more because I know you are extremely good with pre-flop sims and post flop exploits and analyzing stats and coming up with exploits based on those stats.
Yep.
And I found a lot of the post flop work a bit counterproductive because you're trying to convince me to do something that I'm not willing to do, and we've been over it quite frequently, and we've wasted a lot of time on it. And I'm not going to change my thought process. The best way for me to get better is for me to continue looking at sims. Is essentially
Yep.
analyzing
I agree.
sims,
Sure.
going through sims, and becoming more and more familiar with the spots. I don't think a complete overhaul of my thought process needs to be made. I think it would be a lot better if we had the coaching sessions, before this the day's heads up session began, and I think the focus should be less on how I played in the previous day's session and just leave that to me. I already ran a bunch of these hands in GTO Wizard, um, and I'm generally pretty competent with the sims. I don't need that much help with the post flop stuff, especially. That said, I I really have a lot of respect for what you're able to do with pre-flop and how you're able to analyze statistics. Um, what I'm going to do from here on out is I'm going to be even when I'm playing, if something like if something rings a bell in my head or something a thought pops into my head, like, hey, it really feels like Brandon is way under bluffing this line. It feels like every time I call him here, he just has it. I'm going to send you a message. I'm going to tell you, hey, look through this line and check to see if Brandon is over bluffing or under bluffing it. Check to see his barrel frequency in this spot. Check to see if you know he's betting too thinly in this spot. So that's really what I need you for. When it comes to post flop stuff and the hand review, I've honestly found this pretty frustrating, and I'm sure you have as well because you're talking to a guy who's he's done it a certain way for a very long time. And you're trying to change that now in the middle of the heads up challenge, and he's just like, no, I've done it for a very long time. I've always done it my way, and we're just going to keep doing it my way. And I understand you're trying to get through to me, but it's not going to happen. And I think there would be better results for both of us if we essentially shifted the focus to shifted our interactions to your strengths, because that's where I get the most value out of this. You know, I paid like $13,000 for this. I want the most value I can get. So from here on out, I think a coaching session potentially before the match starts is going to be best for me, where you've looked over the hands from the night before, you've looked over the things that I sent you, like, hey, is he over bluffing or under bluffing this line? You report back to me morning of, essentially, and you're like, so I looked into this. He's not over bluffing this line. Looked into this. He's balanced. He's fairly balanced in this line, and that way, I can essentially double check my intuition with the stats that you're looking at in the database. That's how I want to play this moving forward. Okay.
Yep, sure. So if you want to do that, you should just raise all his river probes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So you want to go through some stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been sending you. I started today with it. I mentioned. Yeah, I mentioned a few things. And you said he's under defending against the raise against River Probe. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So here you've got this is his particular statistic. He's at position. Where is the statistic? For river fold. Fold turn probe. Pivot turn and fold. Fold to raise after turn continuation bets. This is the turn. Let's go back to the river. Yeah, that makes more sense. Why I can't find it. So here, this particular one, probe river and fold, 90%.
Oh wow.
Probe river and a 3-bet pot. That doesn't actually make any sense. Probe river non 3-bet pot.
So
Fold
does
to the river
this
C bet.
does
3-bet
this
pot.
suggest
Fold to
that
river C bet and
he's
a non 3-bet pot.
with regard to the probing and then folding
Fold to
on
the
the
river
river?
raise.
Does that suggest that he's likely check raising most of his strong hands, and therefore when he probes the river and he gets raised, it's very rarely a hand strong enough that he feels is strong enough to call the raise? Because if he's probing river and folding to a raise 90% of the time, that likely has more to do with an incorrect range construction than anything else.
So here's call river bets 30%. I mean, you could just be like blasting off on the river in terms of like having massive overbets every single spot, but it kind of suggests that your river bet size is like twice a pot on average. Those are the folds. Fold the river C bet non 3-bet pot. 66.67. Fold to any kind of river bet. 58%. So that means that either you're this is him out of position. Folds the river raise. When he's out of position. 73%. Fold the river raise when he's in position. 75%. So like all of these river spots, you should just be raising him with, fuck all. Yeah.
So raise river with more bluffs when he probes river.
Well, I would raise every bet that he had on the river. Like every time he bets you on the river,
Mhm.
and you have a hand that's near and different, you should just raise instead.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like he's folding so much
That's ridiculous.
against all of this shit. Uh, Call river C bet. When he's in position, he'll just snap you off. Like it seems that he's just always
Is this
calling when he's in position, and then when he's out of position, he just never calls. So yeah, just never bluff him when you're out of position, he's in position, and then always bluff him when he's out of position and you're in position.
okay? Can we filter this for single raise pots and three bet pots? Because I do feel as though he plays a bit differently in the two race types.
Yeah, so you actually don't have any.
Somebody filter?
Yeah, you actually don't have any when he's in position and on through a pot.
Oh, okay.
So that means that you, in a non-through a pot, haven't done a lot of flop check raises and betting the turn.
Flop. Wait. Flop check raises. Okay. What line
Or
are we
something
looking
along those lines. This is just the
looking at
river. This is just the river bet.
Okay. Okay. Wouldn't
This
call
is
river
called
C bet in a three bet
this
pot
is
also include
river check
just the triple
raise.
barrel line? Wouldn't call RC bet in three bet pot also include just the bet line? Because that would technically be a C bet.
Yep. So that's in the three bet pot. In the non-three bet pot, right? You would have had to raise the turn or something
Oh, okay.
in order to get to C bet on the river, and it doesn't appear to have that much. So here, like his folds to river check, call river check raise is 21%. So he's massively folding to those river check raises. His fold to river two bet is 75%.
Mm.
Like, I mean, his overall fold to river bet is really low in position. So, but that's all because of a lot of your three bet pods, and he just heroes down.
Yeah, yeah. I think
But you should just
this
be
is all three bet pots.
well. No, some of it is going to be three bet pods, and some of it is going to be two bet pods.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I can filter that out for you. So here,
Yes.
like um when you just call preflop. No, that's when he just opens uh raise first in, and he doesn't have an opportunity to four bet preflop. All right, so this is all going to be the single raise pots. Here, this is call river check raise is 21%. So every time you get to the river and like he bets and you raise, he's basically always folded. Fold to river check raise, 78%. So it's folding a lot on the river.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 75%. That seems like it's significantly
So
higher
he's
than
folding both a lot to your check raise and your raises when he's out of position. So essentially, when you get to the river in a single raise pot against this guy, you should just raise any of his river bets. Like you
okay.
get to a hand that you think you get to showdown, and like he bets into you, just raise him.
Yeah, got it. Raise river bets in general. It's funny. I've actually I've had that feeling that he might be slightly overfolding that line. I didn't realize it was that extreme. But he did finally catch me today when I jammed over his river bet, and he just called me with like one pair. It's fucking ridiculous. But I think the fact that he's overfolding is, I think he's he's really unprotected in some of those lines. I think he's probably in a lot of the spots where he's folding to a check raise or a river raise in general. I think his range is more capped than it should be at equilibrium in general. That's my read.
So it's the same as a turn check raise. So like he's massively overfolding against a turn check raises.
Okay.
So here, for example, call turn 2-bet 18%, call turn check raise 18%, see bet turn and fold to the raise 80%. I mean, it's 4 out of 5. Call to turn 2-bet 9 out of 11. So yeah, just check raise the turn a lot.
How frequently is he c-betting the turn? It feels like if he doesn't bet the flop, he c-bets the turn at a very high frequency.
So c-bet turn is 39.56. What you're saying is a delay c-bet.
Yeah, delay c-bet. And then it feels like if he delay c-bets on the turn, that he basically almost always follows through on the river.
No, if it checks through on the flop, he just checks back a lot.
Okay. Great. All right. Bad read.
Yeah, it's 3 out of 4. Still going to be folding a lot against that turn raise. So yeah, just raise him in a single raise pot. Just raise him on the turn, raise him on the river. When you're in the big blind. And when he's in the big blind, yeah, I mean, there's not as much there. I mean, obviously, a lot of these hands, right, where you actually did raise him, are going to be his block size. So he could just be massively overfolding it in the block size. So we just take a look at that. Yeah, actually, no, that doesn't make sense. Let's take a look at what it is.
Oh, I remember this one.
Raise any folds. Raise any folds. He donks. You raise any folds. Raise any folds. Raise any calls. Okay. You raise any calls, and then you got the river any folds. He raises overbet. And
Yeah,
he
this
folds.
is bad.
He donks. You raise any folds. This is like your hands in position and then out of position. you raise, and he's got the king. Sorry, he bites up on your flush. Hang on, what?
This one was I actually didn't check it in G2 Wizard, but I should because
So it's
I don't know
just
about
two
the check
nines.
raise.
It's two nines. Bet raise, folds, so folds the check raise there. Folds the check raise there. Folds your check raise there. You go for a double check raise and he folds. Check raise the turn and he folds. Double check raise and he folds. Full flop check raises overbet and he folds. Check raises overbet again and he folds. Check raises pot size bet and he folds. Check raise with a gut shot and he calls.
That was actually day one on the challenge, and that was a misclick on the river. I meant to go all in, but I didn't realize the hotkey. Like I had it set as soon as you press the hotkey, it
so this isn't a three bet pot. You three bet. You see with a flop, and then you check raise the turn and he folds. It's in a four bet pot. Down the turn he calls. You guys got it in your head with a straight. That's a turn raise. So yeah, probably be raising his probably raising those turn C bets significantly more when you're in the big blind.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Checks down. He bets you raise. He folds. Checks down. He bets you raise. He folds. Checks down. He bets you raise. He folds. Call the flop. Checks through. He bets you raise. He folds. Oops. Call flop. Checks down. Bet raise fold. Call flop. Bet raise fold. After it checks on the turn. Checks down. Delay C bets. Turn. Folds through. Check raise. Full turn. Raise river. He folds. Yeah, he calls there. Jam river. He folds. Call flop. Checks through. Check raise call. You end up having the straight now, didn't you? No, too bad. Quads. And raise call. So going through that one. So yeah, I would probably bluff him a lot more. There. This one in position. Raise. I don't think he's doing a lot of folding here. Maybe he is. Yeah, it seems to be. He seems to be doing a lot of folding. Like a lot of these are going to be, the pot. So like here, for example, bet one big blind, and then you raise the river in position. Checks down. Bet one big blind. You raise the river in position. Like checks down. Bets one big blind. You raise the river in position. Like he's going to be doing a lot of. He's doing a lot of folding in this particular line. So like in these sort of small pots, I would suggest like you just raise the. I was just you just raise the river a lot with the turn river a lot with a lot of bluffs. Go out of position, go for a lot of check raise on the turn in position. Raise, or just raise them a lot on the turn and river, and then see how you go next session. All right.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Real quick, it does feel as though like in the small pots, he's a lot more like emotionally indifferent to the outcome of the hand, and so when he gets raised, like I'm trying to get in his head a little bit. When he does get raised in like the small pots, a lot of times it seems as though he just doesn't care enough to defend.
Yeah, I mean he's folding to your raises like 75 to 90% of the time.
That seems like a lot, even if they are
Yeah,
like
it
fairly
is a
big
lot.
raises.
It should be. It depends on the real raise size, of course, but it probably should be 60-ish%. So every time you're making these river raises, like you end up winning, um, probably around half the pot from him
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
when you're bluffing, like a third of the pot to half the pot when you're bluffing. So you should be bluffing significantly more.
Okay.
All right. So try that next time. Let me know how you go. We'll talk
Mhm.
to you tomorrow same time. Yep.
Um, could we do? Is it possible to do? So starts at one more time. I would prefer to have these coaching sessions before the match, which would be 12 my time, which 12 p.m. EST to UTC. It would be 1600 UTC. Is that something you can do? Can you do 1600 UTC? That would be
Probably not. I could do earlier.
you can do earlier. How is
It would have to be significant earlier.
okay? Significantly earlier. I could probably do as early as like 11 a.m. my time, which would be that would be like 1500 UTC.
Yeah, no,
If not,
it would have to be significantly earlier.
okay, yeah, we can just do it same time tomorrow.
All right, great. Sounds good.
But
Don't worry.
I I really like this format of just like diving into the stats because this is what I'm really not good at. I've never had any experience going into people's stats, and this is like one of the primary reasons I chose you over like other people. It's like this is the preflop stuff. So I feel like I'm already getting a lot of value out of this. But yeah, I'm good to go.
All right, see you same time tomorrow. Goodbye.